Okay, viewers, welcome back. This is a bonus episode. We just got back from the what do you call that? Theater. Yeah, I'm a movie reviewer. But before we get into our bonus episode, I just wanted to talk. I don't think you'll see it. Well, you might see some lights flashing. I'm pretty excited about because I'm a tech geek. We are experimenting with something kind of new, and we're doing a 3-camera setup, and I've got a new camera switcher. So I'm pretty stoked about that. However, if there's any glitches or things seem like they look a little weird, then no worries, because that's what's happening.
But hopefully it results in an elevated presentation. So.
Indeed, that is our goal, is to make your viewing experience that much more of an experience.
That's the goal.
So it's all about you. So cut us some slack. Anyhow, I think Maniac is introducing this episode.
Yes, we're bringing you another special bonus thrilling theater episode for this season, which we didn't originally plan to do, but I heard Abigail was getting lots of buzz. That's the film we're reviewing today, and we went to see it, and so we're going to give you our thoughts.
You all came highly recommended. You know the rules. No real names, no backstories, no cell phones.
So whose kid is she?
A very wealthy man who's about to be $50 million poorer.
I'm here to make sure you're safe.
What's your name? Mine's Abigail.
You can call me Joey.
Do you have any kids?
I have a little boy.
See you in 24 hours.
Abigail was directed by Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillette. These were the directors of Ready or Not and the new Scream reboots.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. I didn't clue into that. That's good.
And I liked Ready or Not, and I like the Scream reboots, and you do as well, I believe. Yep. So that's good. Starring Melissa Barrera as Joey, who was also in the Scream reboot, Dan Stevens as Frank, and Alicia Weir as Abigail. This received a 7.1 on Internet Movie Database, an 84% critic score, and an 87% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. So, I'm going to give a very brief synopsis. After a group of criminals kidnap the ballerina daughter of a powerful underworld figure, they retreat to an isolated mansion. I'm going to leave it there. I think I'm going to propose we have a very short discussion that is spoiler-free, because I think as much as possible, you want to go into this film knowing nothing.
100%.
I would even recommend you don't even look at the poster. Don't watch a trailer.
Yeah.
Just go in blind. So I think we'll give very short thoughts and then go into spoilers.
No, I'd seen the poster, but I'd seen it, but from a distance.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay. I mean, it's like a ballerina kind of dress. And I wasn't sure what it was. So I went in sort of blind, and I was happy that I did that, because it was like, okay, that's pretty cool. I like what they did there. Yeah. So.
And I did not go in blind, because they showed this trailer in another movie I'd seen in the theater.
Yeah.
And so a lot of what we're going to talk about, for me anyways, is I think it's really important to go into this movie seeing as little as possible. And I feel like I was robbed of like a really good experience. And I'm really pissed off at whoever cut that trailer.
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts. I think it's worth seeing.
Absolutely.
It's a fun romp. It's got some comedy. It's got some action. It has
really
some horror
liked it.
elements. Yeah.
We did. So we didn't talk about it on the way home, and I was a little bit irked. I'm like, can you just give me something? And Mike's really good. He gave me nothing. So yeah, I was a little bit like, oh my God, why can't we talk about this? But yeah,
and this is a total aside as well, but I think we had a really bad viewing experience in the theater because we were sitting next to 3 highly obnoxious people.
Totally.
They had their cell phones on. They were slurping their drink like a 4-year-old, like
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Like
they were spraying something. I don't know if it was perfume or
yeah. No,
but I heard that little spray bottle sound repeat. Like, what are you possibly spraying in a movie theater?
It was so, yeah, we actually moved seats. And when we moved a few rows ahead, I was saying to Maniac that, yeah, it was all I could do not to say something. I was so angry. And
He looked like he was ready to punch them, so I thought I should probably move now before
it
things
was
get...
just brutal. Like, I don't know how you could possibly be that obnoxious. I mean, we surmise that perhaps they were using some kind of illicit
Intoxicated?
substance, but
Yeah. And they also laughed at really awkward, inappropriate times.
Yeah.
Like, I don't mind if people are laughing, enjoying
Sure,
the movie as
sure,
they
sure.
should.
Yeah.
But when something is meant to be like serious and it's not meant to be funny and you're like cackling out loud, it really kind of ruins it.
it does.
So I feel like my impression of this, the first half of the film was very tainted by our theater experience, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I do feel like that's going to cloud a little bit of what I have to say at the beginning. But honestly, I wonder if we should just stop there and move to spoilers.
Is that all we have to say about spoilers?
Well,
I mean, before spoilers, because I'm going to go look at this. I can go into spoiler.
Spoiler alert.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's
nice.
just jump in. I'm good. Let's just jump in.
okay, so it sounds like you're recommending.
I liked it. Yeah.
I recommend it too. I don't necessarily think you need to rush out and see it in theaters. I do think it's worth watching. I think this falls into like the fun popcorn Friday night movie horror experience. Yeah, so the only reason to go and see this as soon as possible, I think, is to avoid spoilers. So if you're concerned about spoilers and you want to see this one, it's on your radar, maybe go see it in theaters just so that no one will spoil it for you.
Yes, exactly.
But don't look at the poster. Don't watch a trailer. Just go see it.
Just go see it. And
So I just had an upcoming thing spoiled for me.
now we're back to where's our main feed? There we are.
So I'm so envious of you that you got to experience this movie, I think, as it was meant to be experienced.
Yes.
So it's
So you had a pretty good idea of the premise.
oh yeah,
of
like
film.
the
Okay.
so spoilers, we're in there. So it starts as almost like an Ocean's 11 style,
Yes.
kind of like there's a kidnapping. They kidnap this girl. Each person in the group has like their special role. You've
Yeah.
got like the sniper and the driver and the techie. So it kind of feels like, I don't know, Ocean's 11 came to mind.
Totally. Yeah. It's definitely a caper film at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they kidnap the girl, and the whole idea is that her father is like this big crime boss, and they're trying to extort money out of him in ransom for
Yeah.
the girl. Yeah. But surprise, partway through the movie, at first you think that she's the victim and she's trapped in there with them, but when you realize she's a vampire,
Yeah.
it turns out that she is the villain and they're trapped in there with her. But they show that scene in the theater where she actually like turns into the vampire during the trailer. I think maybe there's 2 trailers, but the trailer I saw fully spoils the fact that she's a vampire.
That's unfortunate because that's the real cool part of the film is when you realize the twist.
Yeah, that's like giving away an M. Night Shyamalan movie
Yeah.
in the trailer. Like, we won't spoil Sixth Sense here, but if you gave away the twist in the trailer, it's kind of like, why go see it?
Well, yeah, and I guessed it. I mean, I guessed as the movie was going along. Okay, I think there's something up with the kidnapped victim,
Right.
but I didn't suspect that it would come out the way it did. for
No,
sure.
and they did it really well, I
They
think.
did. Yeah, absolutely.
But I was so deflated for the first half of the movie because all the kind of hinting and suspense and any sympathy you're supposed to feel for the girl in the first half, which I think you are supposed to,
Yeah.
wasn't there because I'm like, okay, well, I know that you're a vampire. You're going to kill these people at some point. So, I mean, I get that you want people to see your movie, and I get that that is the hook.
Yeah.
But I feel like you still could have maybe done it in such a way where you're not giving away that.
Yeah, especially. I mean, and we've talked about this before, and it's not something that I think all moviegoers talk about the bane of the trailer, and that they often give away way too much, or they give away the best bits,
Yeah.
or like the best one-liners, or whatever it is. And unfortunately, like I feel with the horror genre in particular, I mean, it's kind of like if you've got a mystery film and you tell us who the murderer is, like in the trailer,
Yeah.
what's the point of going to see the film?
Because that robs the
Yeah.
entire rest of the narrative,
Yeah,
which
totally.
is building towards creating the sense of mystery.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, yeah, it's very frustrating because I kind of didn't really enjoy a lot of it, but I think I would have loved it if I didn't know. And I think I would have been like giggly when that twist
Yes.
happened.
Yeah, I mean, and I hear in what you're saying is like when you say, "Oh, I'm jealous of your experience of going in," because that was my experience. Was like, "Oh yeah, this is pretty cool. Actually, I like what they did there." And we talked. I think this was the only thing we talked about. I loved the teeth on the vampire.
The teeth are very good.
Because, stereotypically you get the vampire with the, two fangs, or like in the original Nosferatu, I think it's his two front teeth that are more like, almost like, because in the original Nosferatu, he was supposed to be rodent-like.
Right.
And
He looks rodent-like, yeah.
he looks rodent-like,
totally.
right?
Yeah.
And so, but as vampire lore and the movies have changed over time, you get the sort of the standard, eye teeth, two fangs kind of thing. This is really cool because it does look more like a monster, like as opposed to a vampire. The Abigail like really does turn into this feral beast,
Yeah.
right? And it's like that's the terrifying vampire that like you're not sparkling in the sun, you're like gonna rip my throat out.
Yeah, I was reading they actually put a lot of work into the teeth, and that's something they really thought about, and they kind of modeled it after a shark, apparently.
Oh yeah, because there's almost
teeth.
like double rows,
multiple
almost,
rows
yeah.
of teeth, which is I think unique for the vampire. So
Yeah.
that was really cool. So I feel like they could have even teased the fact that there's a vampire because there's her father as well.
Yes.
So why not tease the fact that like the father is the menace?
Yes.
And keep it completely quiet that
Totally.
the girl. Like
I
I
agree
still
with
think
you.
you could have got people in the theater, intrigued them, have this like Ocean's 11 heist that goes wrong.
Yeah.
And maybe even hint that there's vampires, but maybe it's the father. Like, oh no, we took this girl and her father's a vampire, but keep it the fact that she is the vampire a secret.
And I think, I mean, this is something that I've, read about and looked into many times over the years, but just I think I've even mentioned this on an episode at one point, but there's a famous artist, Drew Struzan is his name. And he did,
We've talked about him before.
yeah, we talked about him.
Yeah.
I've got a book with all his famous movie posters because in the day, someone was hired to do the artwork for the film.
Mm-hmm.
And now that's not the case. They typically just take like a shot, picture, a photo of a couple of characters, and then they Photoshop it or do whatever. And to me, that's you and I talked about after watching the movie that I think the trailer could have focused on the heist part more.
For sure.
And kind of left you wondering, well, why is this being billed as a horror film?
Yeah.
And maybe suggest, that the father, there's something sinister about the father. Because he only comes in the last 5 minutes of the film, maybe 2 minutes.
Totally. And they don't reveal that she's a vampire for quite some time.
Exactly.
Like, it's not like this is something that happens in the first 10 minutes. Like, the whole, I feel like, the way the film is crafted around the idea that the audience does not know this.
Exactly. I mean, the first act of the film, you don't know.
No.
You know something's-
and she's portrayed very you're
Yes.
very sympathetic and
Yeah.
innocent and victim-like.
Yeah.
I'm just so frustrated. It's just like...
Because it's Alicia Weir, I think, is the...
Yeah, she was great.
Yeah, she was so good. Like, just in turn, she's innocent and vulnerable, but also terrifying
Yes.
and aggressive. And, like, I felt it was palpable that you believe that she could unleash at any
Yes.
moment, right?
She pulls off both ends
yes,
of the spectrum.
absolutely.
Yeah. It's so yeah, all of this clouded the first half of the movie for me. But so you and I might have different opinions. There's a bit of an awkward dynamic though, too, in that so by having the bad guys, like the antagonists, be the victim and have the one you sympathize with be the villain is a bit awkward because
Yes.
in a way you don't really sympathize with anyone because you're like, these guys are all assholes.
Totally. Yeah.
But
Because they even
then-
talk about hurting the girl at one point.
Yes.
Right? And you're like, okay, yeah, these are not, there's no honor among thieves here.
That's
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But then you build up the sympathy for her, but then she's like a pretty sadistic, manipulative,
Yeah.
crazy, badass vampire. So in the end, and I think they purposely tried to, so is it Joey?
Yes.
Melissa Barrera's
Yeah,
character.
Melissa Barrera, yeah.
She's on the bad team, but she's one of the more likable, sympathetic ones. They kind of try to humanize her more than the others.
Yeah. I mean, my only issue, I have notes to myself that, I mean, I think Melissa Barrera is a really good final girl.
Yeah.
Like I really like her in that role. I struggled with the cliche of the, what's the word that I'm thinking of? Kind of the noble whore, you know what I mean? Like, and she's not that, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like the drug addicted mother who still loves her son. Like that's just such an old trope or whatever.
But do you feel like that was their only angle to make her both the villain but sympathetic?
Yeah, I suppose.
Like
yeah.
I feel like that's what they were trying to do because they probably realized we don't have.
Yeah.
There's no one to root for in this movie.
No, that's true. And I think if she had been like, because she was supposed to be an army medic or whatever, so
Yeah.
she had a background in the military, but she wasn't. She was hardcore and astute about the people around her, but she also had that softer side, which is what connected her with Abigail.
Yeah.
Right?
And how did you find the characters?
Well, is it I was going to say he's not the first one. I was just trying to process and think because often in horror movies it's the black character that gets killed first, but
Yeah,
it wasn't.
it wasn't,
no, it was the
druggy guy.
Yeah, it was the white trash.
I found him annoying. Like
Yeah.
I just didn't like his character.
No.
I found him just irritating. And maybe you're supposed to.
But that was the only character that I didn't like. Like in quotation marks. I mean, I thought the guy who played the sniper, who was supposed to be he was supposed to be with Melissa Barrera in the sense of they were both military. And
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't have a huge part, but I liked his character. Frank's character, I quite liked, even though
Okay.
he was pretty despicable.
Yeah. The muscle guy, they do a cool twist with him.
They do.
Because he's not muscle at all. Like he's muscle
He's
on paper.
big. Yeah.
But he's kind of a softie.
Yeah,
And he's like one of
absolutely.
the more sympathetic ones. And for being the muscle, he never actually
No.
like he's pretty useless the whole
And
time.
he was I can't remember the character's name. It took me a while to figure out, but was it Deadpool? That he was in one of the Marvel movies.
Oh, yeah.
Is it Deadpool?
It might be. I definitely recognized him.
Yeah, he was in this big suit.
Was he Colossus?
I thought it was that British guy, Vince whatever, who was Colossus.
I haven't
Obviously
seen
my
Deadpool in a
Marvel
Yeah, I'm not a huge Marvel guy
me
either,
neither.
so
Anyway,
apologies.
he was in one of the superhero movies as one of the villains.
Okay.
And yeah, he was in I don't know if he was Colossus, but I know he was in some big suit.
Juggernaut? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think Juggernaut was Vince.
Because
Whatever.
Juggernaut was in Deadpool, one of them.
Yeah.
So I forget who played him.
I think it was that British guy who was in like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Oh, yeah, okay,
You know,
yeah,
he's that. Yeah.
Yeah, recognize him. Yeah,
I
okay.
think his Vince something. I can't remember his name, but yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's all good. But just the characters are they're like caricatures.
Yes, agreed.
And that kind of irks me, but I guess that maybe just comes with the territory for those heist movies.
I think so. I mean, I think that also plays into the idea that there's a comedic edge to the film. I mean, it's not necessarily laugh out loud funny, but there are some funny moments and some funny lines. And I think those caricatures, I think if you think of the Ocean's 11 films,
They are as well.
they're caricatures as well,
Yeah.
right? You always have, usually the smart techie guy, and you have the brains, the brawn,
Yeah.
So yeah, I felt that this kind of followed those tropes for sure.
I think I've realized that I'm drawn to films with really dynamic and interesting characters. And I feel like all of those films don't always quite get there for me because I find the sort of forced or like just kind of inauthentic dialogue
Yeah.
kind of bugs me, or the lack of depth to the characters. I'm just kind of like, I don't really care too much about it.
What was I didn't write down her character name, the other female in the
techie girl?
Yeah.
Yeah, I forget her name, but
But yeah, I mean, I quite liked her character because as the movie progresses, I mean, the one thing I will say is that I feel like I liked the idea of the character progression in the sense it's because this is a gang that has got together and they've been,
and they don't know each other.
they don't know each other.
Right.
So there's some mystery around who they are, what their background is. And they even say to each other, like, no names,
Yeah.
no like personal details, whatever. And then it's not until Abigail reveals who they are, right?
But they juxtapose that with Joey being a very intuitive character, and they have this little game where she's trying to bet if she can
Yeah.
guess their
Yes.
backgrounds.
Yeah.
So you get to like compare like the guess to what it actually is.
Yeah.
And that was maybe a clever way to like get background information and exposition on the characters without them just out saying, "Oh yeah, I did this," and like that was a clever way.
It was clever. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. And then it's cool, you're right, when Abigail comes out and actually outs them all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and actually says like, okay, well, you're, such and such, and they, what I like about those moments is that even though that they're kind of, they're doing something pretty despicable. I mean, they've kidnapped a 12-year-old girl for
Yes.
a $50 million ransom, but they kind of look at one another like, oh, like you did that, or you did that, or they judge one another.
And there's kind of a spectrum to their
Yes.
despicableness. Like
Yeah, totally.
some are far more despicable than others,
Yeah.
even though they're working on the same team. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think my impression of all that opening scene where there was a lot of dialogue was very tainted by the jackasses sitting next to us. 'cause
Yeah,
it was
hard
hard
not
to
to be.
concentrate,
Yeah.
and my mood was off. So that's maybe part of it. Yeah. So it's pretty gory too.
Yeah, there's some great gore. I mean, the performances were good. Like we've already talked about the teeth.
I call them gore explosions. Like when the light hits, it really blew me away. Like they just explode.
Oh, yeah, and I haven't seen
Like out of nowhere. Like I kind of thought they'd slowly start burning or
Yeah.
something. It's just like as soon as the sun hits, it's like boom, they explode
it's
everywhere. I like that.
it's Blade.
Yeah.
but almost next level Blade, because although the vampires sometimes explode in Blade, these ones were like, what did he eat? TNT
Dusk Till Dawn
for?
too, did they explode?
Oh yeah, they may have. Yeah. And Dusk Till Dawn had some pretty good exploding vampires too.
It did. Spoilers for Dusk Till Dawn.
Sorry.
Which after our huge thing, because that one I got to enjoy because I did not know that was a thing.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I want to go into too much more detail because I just wanted to kind of give this a, Fast and Furious, kind of approach. But yeah, it's worth seeing. I think it's a lot of fun. I think if you are sensitive to the audiences that you can possibly get in a theater. I mean, we were commenting that we had a couple of experiences a few years ago where we had some really bad audiences, but it was either a Friday night or a Saturday night or whatever.
Well, we used to go to movies together in the evenings, like Friday night,
Yes.
Saturday night, and we switched to like Sunday
Yeah.
matinees on purpose to avoid the annoying,
Absolutely.
inebriated teenagers.
And this is what we thought too this time, right? Being on a weeknight.
It was a Monday night.
Yeah, it wouldn't be. Yeah. So having said all that, if that's your thing, if you're sensitive to that, then maybe stream it or buy it if that's your thing. But if you're going to go see it in the theaters, and I actually think we actually rushed out to see it because there was a limited run in our town.
Yeah.
It's not going to last. It's not.
It's only in town for a few more days.
Yeah. So anyway, we certainly recommend it, and if you can get out and see it, it is a fun romp. I think Melissa Barrera, having seen her in the Scream remakes, was really good, and I like her for this role.
What'd you think of the father showing up at the end as a vampire? Because I almost feel like they didn't need that, and almost felt.
I felt they didn't need that.
I feel like it weakened the film actually.
Yeah, I just don't like. I didn't understand what the creative decision was to have him come in. I mean,
It seemed like they wanted to have a little message about, because her father comes in and Abigail basically has to make a choice whether she wants to spare
Yes.
Melissa Barrera or not. And she kind of makes this comment about parenting, like, oh, just be there, just show up. And
Yeah.
that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Like just to put in this very forced, like kind of nice messaging about parenting at the end with the father who wasn't in the film at all. And he shows up for 2 seconds and he's kind of not that, he doesn't look that interesting. Or I was kind of let down. Like, really, this is the guy?
yeah, I mean, I think the only explanation I can come up with on my own is that there were all these allusions to or assumptions about who he was,
Yeah.
and that they kept talking about all of these like his enemies who would be like torn to pieces or whatever. And so there was some hitman working for him. And then as the film goes along, you realize, oh, that's probably Abigail. And you know eventually that it is Abigail because she tells
Yes.
you, right?
Did you think that he was going to be a vampire as well?
I didn't actually.
No, I didn't either. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. It makes sense. But
Makes sense. But I felt like the only reason to bring him in was to show us that he was that ruthless, basically a monster that he had the reputation of being.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't human. But yeah, I didn't feel like it added anything to the story. Like I felt because Joey helps Abigail survive
Yeah.
when she's attacked by someone who's turned. Frank, one of the other characters, becomes a vampire and takes on Abigail. And I thought, I liked what they did with that because he felt he was very confident and arrogant. And Abigail said something like, it takes centuries to do all the cool shit that vampires do. And I was like, yeah, because that's often the case.
And she says that, doesn't she? She actually says like
she actually
cool
says
shit.
that, yeah. And I just think there's something about like in many vampire movies, like people are turned and then all of a sudden they're, I think Interview with a Vampire was good at this. Maybe I don't remember the movie clearly enough, but I read the novel several times. And this idea that when you turn someone, not only did they basically had to learn how to live life all over again. And I feel like that was a really cool reminder.
And Dracula Dead Loving It, isn't it the same?
Oh, I don't know. Is it? Yeah.
I think he has to learn all the different vampire powers.
So anyway, I just think Melissa Barrera is great. Alicia Weir is really good. Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was just wondering, do you feel like, because we've talked about kind of the evolution of the vampire, the representation of the vampire, did you get the sense that here the vampire was almost like a superhero? Like you're almost getting like superpowers, and the guy wanted to get the superpowers.
Frank, you mean, when he was
Frank.
changed?
Yeah, exactly. And the other guy.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention. I know
he's from Breaking Bad.
Yeah, Giancarlo Esposito.
Yeah.
He's been in a couple things because he's got a new TV series called Parasite. I think. No, is it Parasite? Yeah, I think it's called Parasite.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, he's really good.
Yeah.
I quite like him as an actor
because he really talks up like, oh, we'll have all this power.
Yes.
And
that was really, I thought that was really clever too, because Abigail comes in and she's like, oh, did he tell you about all the power you would have? And it was kind of like a fun moment because she knows exactly what he was doing.
Because in a lot of movies, vampirism is like a curse. And it's like, oh, no, I've been bitten, I'm going to turn into a vampire.
Yeah.
But in this case, like, yeah, like a vampire and I get all these cool powers.
And I think I've mentioned that actually, aside from having to hunt people and drink blood, ever since I was a little kid, and was into horror films and stuff, I've always thought it would be really cool to be a vampire.
You're like secretly hoping.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, isn't there? If you're watching and there's vampires out there, I'm here. I offer myself to you. Yeah, I just think, I mean, aside from the angst of living forever, there's something about immortality that is not.
See, for some people, that'd be the most appealing part.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I don't know if that would be a good thing.
It appeals when I watch vampire films, and I'm thinking of what's the one?
Vampire in Brooklyn?
No, shut up. There's the one with it's the really stylized one, 1982, The Hunger. That's about the angst of living forever, and Abigail mentions, I've had centuries to practice. Like, she's a 12-year-old girl, but she's a vampire who's been around for a couple of centuries. And Kirsten Dunst plays that in the Interview with the Vampire. She plays the little girl that they turn.
I actually this movie is very self-aware, and they rattle off a bunch of different vampire movies. They're talking about like True Blood. And
they do,
Buffy Vampire Slayer, and I kind of like that.
Yeah, that's. Because they're at first, like, I think most people would be, is like, are we talking about vampires here? Like, is this what we're really talking about? And then
the characters trying to figure out, like,
yes,
what's real in this vampire
yeah.
universe.
And it's the techie girl who says, okay, well, what kind of vampire are we talking about here? Are we talking about Twilight vampire? Are we talking about, so
do you like that meta level?
I do.
Yeah.
I mean, I really like that. I mean, that was the great thing about the original Scream in 96 was that self-aware meta. And I don't always get them all, but I really love when filmmakers drop Easter eggs or allude to something, and if you know kind of thing. I think that's really cool. Like, I think it rewards the real fans who've seen all the movies.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take away from the experience of the people who might not have seen some of those films. So, yeah, I really like that. Like, I thought that was a really fun part.
And did you like the tone? Because I feel like you could play this movie two ways. You could do it very straight, very scary, intense.
Yeah.
And this one is like almost borderline horror comedy. Like it's meant to be like jovial and kind of fun. And so do you have a preference of those two things for a movie like this? Because she was intense and like the performances were good enough. She looked terrifying with the teeth that I think you could have played it straight, and I might have actually liked it better. I think maybe some of the goofiness almost like detracted from it for me, but I know some people just like to go and have a fun time.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. Like, I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, and I agree with you that the gore and the like the teeth and the performances, I think you could have played it straight. That being said, I do, in this case, I think they made a pretty good attempt at that teeter-totter of going back and forth between the, I don't know if I want to say comedy, but the comedic elements.
And tonally that fits with Ready or Not and Scream a bit
absolutely.
more too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like it when it's done well. I like it when they don't go too far into the comedy, and this one had enough horror that I think sometimes that's what bugs me about the horror comedies, is that they don't go far enough one way or the other.
Yeah.
And this one I felt went far enough in the horror for me.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah. Because I think I prefer horror comedies that are like clearly very funny, or I want like intense, like really intense horror. Like I find the blurring, it's like dramedies too. Like the.
So this wasn't intense enough. The horror part.
I feel like every time it was getting intense, there'd be like a joke or a one-liner or something goofy would happen, which makes it fun. Like I think the audience was liking it. There was lots of laughing, but there's lots of laughing, which is not normal for a horror film.
No, that's true.
And I just felt like I could see watching a movie which with all the same cast that was just done straight and meant to be as terrifying as possible, and I might enjoy that more better. But I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I totally get that. I had fun though. I thought it was a good watch. Yeah. I liked it.
Cool. Well, I think that's all we have to say.
I think so. Yeah.
You've heard the spoiler section now, so
yeah, there you go.
Hopefully you were able to go see this unspoiled beforehand.
Yes, I hope so. I hope for your sake you were able to.
So maybe in the comments, if you're watching this on YouTube, maybe give like, did you see this with spoilers or without spoilers? And what's your opinion on watching trailers or trailers that reveal things? Because I have some friends who are like, I don't care. Like, spoilers don't bother me. Like, I like knowing what's going to happen. I'm like, really? That's so weird to me.
Well, who?
Oh, Aaron, wasn't it?
No,
one
it
of our
was
guests?
Francois,
right.
Yeah, because he said, oh, yeah, that doesn't bother me. I like spoilers. And we're like, what? And I think I said to him, like, do you read the last page of a book, too? Like, because the spoilers sometimes give away everything that's good about a film.
Totally.
And I'm sorry, but, like, it can't be that hard to cut a spoiler without giving away. Like, you've got 2 friggin' hours of film footage to work with.
Yeah, and you would think they would want the viewer to have the best experience. Maybe they don't. I mean, obviously they just want money.
I think that's it. I think they want to give you so much that you want to come and see it. And then when you come and see it, you realize, oh, Jesus, they gave away everything good in the trailer.
Yeah, and it's frustrating. Like, I don't seek out trailers anymore. I as
try to
much as
avoid
possible,
it.
go in blind.
Yeah.
But when you're at a movie and they're showing the trailers before it starts,
what are you going to do? Cover your eyes?
Sometimes I do. I feel like an idiot. Or even if you do that, you still are hearing what's going on.
Yeah.
So, like, that was the case for me with Abigail. I was seeing some other movie in theaters and the trailer, and they spoiled it. So,
and I don't, because there was a trailer in, I think it might have been in Civil War, which my wife and I saw a week ago.
Okay.
So I think Abigail, and I don't know why, but I wasn't paying attention. And I remember, like, because I did not know that she was a vampire going in.
I think I've heard there is 2 trailers.
Okay.
And maybe the first one, they're like, what are you doing? And then they put out yeah.
I mean, the poster, there's a bunch of blood on her tutu.
Even that, I think, is obnoxious.
Yeah. I mean, because you know then that she's got something to do with it. Like,
Yeah. Leave her out of it. I guess it's called Abigail.
yeah, but
But she's being kidnapped, so that makes sense.
that's right.
Yeah.
And you could do it without giving away the premise of the film. Like and have viewers go, "Oh, that was awesome." Like I went in, it was such a surprise and I was totally blown away.
'Cause I think I would have got like the pins and needles. Like I think that would have been. I think they executed it well, and I wouldn't have seen it coming.
No.
Like I think that would have been really cool. So I'm just pissed that I was robbed of that experience.
Yeah.
Damn you, publishers or whatever they are.
Yeah.
Production companies.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in for this special bonus episode, and see you in the
See you in the
aisles.
aisles.